Before we get started, I just want to give a really quick overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight and the fantastic guests that we've got joining us on the call. So first up, we'll be hearing briefly from Anna, who is an organiser of the Youth Climate Strikes. As many of you know, on Friday, thousands of young people walked out of school and into the streets to protest about government inaction on climate change. So it's going to be really great to hear a bit about the campaign and what we can learn from the strikers. Then Aliya from Momentum is going to be explaining about the campaign that we are planning and how we can stand in solidarity with the strikers by targeting the funders of climate change. This is where you guys come in. Because the success of the campaign will come down to your organising. Next, we'll be hearing from Chris, who is an organiser at People and Planet, about why targeting the funders of climate change is a really key strategic next step for our movement. And he's going to talk a bit about his experience of organising some really successful actions so far. And finally, we're going to be hearing from Sam, who's a Momentum activist from Camden, who has already started organising local actions for the campaign. Overall, this call should last no more than an hour, and we're going to do our absolute best not to go over that so that we respect everyone's time. The first action that we want to organise is taking place on Saturday, the 30th of March. So if you know that you want to sign up to organise an action already, even though we haven't explained what it is yet, that's amazing. Please sign up. We're going to share the link to that in the chat box now. But for those of you who can't see it, that link is bit.ly, that's bit.ly/stop Barclays. We're going to keep everyone muted until the end because there's so many people on the call and there's a lot to get through. But if you want to ask questions or ask for support, you can email Samir, whose email address we're also posting in the chat box just now. Samir is...
Hi everyone.
Just say hello.
Great to see you all.
Yeah, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker this evening, who is Anna from the Youth Climate Strike. Anna, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Great. Go for it.
Hi, so I'm Anna. I organised the first nationwide UK student climate strike. Our first one was on the 15th of February and we had our second one last Friday on the 15th of March. I went about organising it. I used mostly social media to access other students, and then we also held regular weekly Zoom calls, and also sometimes we met in person as well, where that was possible. We had regional organisers in different parts of the country, so it's quite a decentralised strike. Sorry. Yeah, it was quite a decentralised strike, so as the original nationwide organisers, we just gave advice for the regional organisers and then they took over and just did their own thing in their region. So we have been running student strikes, but we're thinking about joining up and getting adults and more people involved actually. So this is quite topical and it'd be great to get more involved with you and maybe we could work together to help coordinate a kind of joint strike. We're thinking about having a general strike in September, but we're thinking September might be too far away to get adults involved because I know there's a lot of energy out there and hopefully we can bring that about.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about kind of what's motivated you personally to do this in terms of the climate crisis.
Yeah, I've always been interested in the environment. I've had quite a close connection with nature growing up. My parents brought me up kind of walking in fields and climbing mountains in the Lake District and stuff. And I always tried to be involved, but I found it hard as a young child and, you know, as a teenager as well to become involved in activism when the opportunities weren't really there. So that's why I set up UK Student Climate Network, because when I was a 13-year-old, it was really hard for me to get involved in activism. I tried to join Greenpeace when I was 13 years old and I was told I would have to wait 5 years. So with UK Student Climate Network, we aim to help get school-age kids involved, and the fact that I'm a school-age kid myself means that we don't have that criticism of kind of radicalising people as much as NGOs do. So I just grew increasingly concerned, and also as a geography student, I studied geography, GCSE and A-level, and I realised that what they were teaching us about climate change was really minimised and not accurate at all. And that's another point that raised concern. And then after seeing Greta going out on strike and hearing about the Australian students going out and the Belgians and the Swiss, I thought, why isn't the UK involved? So I went about setting up the first UK strike, and on Friday we had 20,000 out in London. So yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. And I came down on Friday and yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the call. That's really great to hear from you. Cool. So next up, I'm going to introduce Aliya, who, as I said, is an organiser at Momentum, and she's going to explain how we can stand in solidarity with the youth climate strikers and take action against those funding climate change. But if you're a super keen organiser, I know lots of you are, and you want to support the climate strikers, then you can click the link that we're posting in the chat box now and commit to hold an action. That link again is bit.ly /stop Barclays. Cool, over to you.
Thank you, Claire. Thanks everyone. Hi everybody, it's amazing to be on this call. So just to give you a bit of background on this campaign, from hurricanes in the Caribbean to wildfires on Saddleworth Moor to flooding and landslides in Pakistan, where my family's from, which has left millions of people homeless, climate change is already devastating communities around the world. And according to a recent report, we only have 11 years left to act to limit the worst of the crisis. That is not very long. If we're serious about preventing catastrophic warming, this means we cannot build any more fossil fuel infrastructure. Rather than digging more coal mines or drilling more oil fields and building more pipelines, we need to radically transform our energy infrastructure and build a green economy for the many. Labour have quite ambitious plans for green investment as part of a much broader green industrial revolution. I don't know if people have seen recently that this has been talked about by John McDonnell and Becky Long-Bailey. But we need to step up and play our part too, because we won't transform the economy and beat climate change just by pulling policy levers in Westminster. It's going to take some real grassroots action in communities across the country, grassroots action that is already taking place by a lot of people already on this call as well, as we've seen in the chat from earlier today. But in order to win this fight, we're going to need to take on the banks. Although fossil fuel companies have a lot of money, they do not have the billions of dollars needed to build their infrastructure. This is financed by the banks, who could be investing in renewables instead. And one of the biggest culprits is Barclays. Between 2012 and 2017, Barclays financed 15 fossil fuel companies with over $30 billion, including corporations pushing ahead with the plans to develop the fracking industry in the UK, which I know quite a lot of Momentum groups have been organising against, and other campaigns in the UK as well, such as Quadrilla and Third Energy. And there are other coal and pipeline projects across Europe. A decade ago, it was the banks that crashed the economy, and this time they're crashing the climate, but we can stop them. And we can do this. We've beat banks a lot of times before. For example, in the 1980s, British students targeted Barclays, demanding they withdraw from the apartheid regime in South Africa, and they won. In recent months, renters union Acorn have been pressuring NatWest into dropping their clause that forced buy-to-let landlords from discriminating against welfare claimants. And as part of the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, campaigners for Palestine targeted HSBC. They sent more than 24,000 emails and picketed 40 different HSBC branches monthly. And at the end of last year, December 2018, HSBC announced that they were fully divesting from an Israeli drone manufacturer, Elbit Systems. So it shows that when we take action, we can beat the banks. And with only limited grassroots effort from People and Planet campaigners, we'll hear a bit from People and Planet later on, Barclays has already begun to concede on this. In May 2017, the bank's chairman told shareholders that Barclays would be withdrawing its financing of a company licensed to frack in Rydale. This was due in part to the hundreds of creative direct actions taken by students and others at Barclays branches across the country. If we can beat Barclays, we can land a fatal blow to the fossil fuel industry, but we can only do this when we're doing it together, which is why today we are asking you to join us to take action. On Saturday, 30th of March, we're going to support you guys, if you want to get involved, to hold pickets, occupations, creative direct actions at Barclays branches across the country, wherever you are. Think like UK Uncut, but against the banks, in solidarity with the kids strikers, demanding that Barclays stops funding the fossil fuel industry. Already this week and a bit of last week, we've started calling and emailing around activists, many of whom are on this call. We've already got 10 actions organised across the country, some of which you'll hear about a bit later on. An action can be as small as 7 people. You can do them anywhere there's a Barclays branch, and we're going to send you everything that you need to hold your first action. So if you're a first-time campaigner, don't worry. If you've done this a million times before, I'm sure you're very used to it. But we can send you step-by-step guidelines, leaflets, and handbooks. And we're also going to be inviting everyone to an online training. So if you've never organised something like this before, we can help you. And we'll also promote your event on social media, online, to make sure that you get a good crowd on the day. So if you're up for it, if that sounds good, please click the link that we're posting in the chat box now and that Claire was talking about before. We want to get moving on this as soon as possible because the 30th of March is not that far away. So we really need you guys to step up this evening, click that link, commit to holding an action. That link again is bit.ly/stopbarclays. We're going to support you every step of the way. All we need is you. We need organisers to join us and say, yes, I'm going to stand in solidarity with the kid strikers and I'm going to take action against the banks who are funding climate change. We know how brilliant Momentum organisers across the country are, that you guys have taken action on issues affecting your local communities, from protesting against cuts to nurseries, cuts to libraries, cuts to public transport, and cuts to all public services. Now it's time for us to join together, wherever we are in the country and internationally on this call, to take on the banks. So see you outside a Barclays branch on Saturday, 30th of March.
Thank you, Aliya. That was a great kind of explanation of like what we're trying to do here. So remember, if you want to sign up to an action, then just go to the link we've just posted in the chat box and fill in the form. You can do that right now whilst you're on the call. Then we'll be in touch later tonight with everything that you need to organise your action. That link again is bit.ly/stopbarclays. So I can see here that we've already had 5 brave people step up during the call to organise an action. That's incredible. Thank you so much to Greg in London, to Steve in Germany, to Jyoti in Belper, Ryan in Newton Abbot, and Nancy in London. That's amazing. So thank you so much. So for our next speaker, we have the pleasure of being joined by Chris Saltmarsh, who is an organiser at People and Planet. We should say at this point as well that we are organising this campaign in collaboration with People and Planet because they have a wealth of experience in staging exactly this kind of direct action. So Chris is going to be telling us about why targeting the banks is a really strategic next step for our movement, and tell us about how people have staged really great and exciting creative direct actions before. So Chris, are you there?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Cool. Thanks a lot for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, I guess I wanted to start really by explaining, why targeting Barclays now is a strategically useful and important thing to do. And I guess what I'd start by saying is that you can't really understand why targeting Barclays is important without having to think about that fossil fuel divestment. This is something that I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. But to quickly explain, what we've been doing with People and Planet and other organisations over the last few years has been targeting universities and local councils, faith institutions, and asking them to stop investing in fossil fuel companies. And the aim of that really is to stigmatize those companies and make it really clear that it's not acceptable that the companies who are extracting and burning fossil fuels and making a profit off of climate change continue to have such power and influence over our political and our economic lives. But what we've seen after the success of fossil fuel divestment is that, well, the fossil fuel industry is still going, it's still powerful. We need to go further to take them on. And so what we've kind of identified is that, what we call the social license, or like social legitimacy of fossil fuel companies to operate, is just one of the pillars that they need to continue to function and continue to dominate our economy. Some of those other pillars include things like infrastructure, so that's like the pipelines or the national grid that is reliant on fossil fuels. It's things like subsidies from the state for fossil fuel companies. It's things like permits from the state for fossil fuel companies to continue to expand. It's also things like the workers that work in the industry and do the labor necessary. But, what we're thinking about is the finance side of things. And as Aliya said before, fossil fuel companies have a lot of money, but they actually don't have enough money kind of sloshing around in their bank accounts to build things like huge new coal mines or huge new pipelines. And so they require on high street banks like Barclays, like HSBC, like Lloyds to provide that capital really. And so what we're doing with the kind of bank stuff is really building on the good work that divestment campaigners have done to really like take it to the next level and try and damage them a kind of their root and really cut off their lifeline, cut off the finance that allows fossil fuel companies to continue to make a profit off of climate change. And so at People on Planet, we've been targeting Barclays since early 2017. We started doing that because they were financing a company called Third Energy, who were trying to frack in North Yorkshire. And actually, through a series of actions across the country, targeting branches, as well as interventions at their AGM, we've got Barclays to commit to pulling out of that company, stop financing it. I don't think they've quite done it yet, but it's certainly on its way. I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about was just give you a sense of what kinds of actions we've been doing through People on Planet, what kind of actions we've been supporting students to take targeting Barclays over the past couple of years. The first one I wanted to mention was actually one of the first Barclays actions that I ever organised. This was in Sheffield, where I was a student. And what we did was, through building links with other community groups, a range of political parties, different campaigns in our kind of city, we brought together well over 150 people to the biggest Barclays in Sheffield city centre, and we had a huge rally outside it. There was loads of speeches, there was loads of banners, there was singing, there was chanting, and that attracted local media to come down, and it got really strong coverage, and we were able to make our message really clearly that Barclays needed to stop funding all fossil fuels. Another really great example is where we've actually got inside the bank. I think one of the great things about doing these actions targeting Barclays is you can almost treat the branch itself as a blank canvas that you can be as creative as you like with, in terms of the action that you're taking, in terms of the story you're telling, and the political message that you're getting across. And so in one example in Sheffield, again, we did a sit-in, which was a bit more disruptive for the bank, and got them listening. But the creative thing we did with that space was we did a teach-in as well. And so we taught everyone who came along to the action about some of the kind of the crimes, the human rights abuses that the companies that Barclays are financing were complicit in. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to educate ourselves, each other, and the public as well. So it's worth thinking about that when you're planning your action. Another really great one that I wanted to mention was in December last year, we targeted a Barclays here in Oxford, where I am at the moment, and we decided to kind of have a more positive slant on it. And so we thought it was a Saturday morning, it was really cold, it was December, and so we decided to get moving and have a dance. And so we organised a disco in the Barclays, and we built a huge papier-mâché disco ball, and we hauled it into the Barclays. We brought our sound system, and we just had a big dance for a couple of hours, which I think, I felt it was a really interesting one, because whereas sometimes they can be a bit confrontational if you're doing chanting, people might be a bit confused. When we were dancing, we found it was a really good way to engage with both the public, customers that were coming in, as well as the staff. And that was really fun. We were having a good time, we were happy, and it was kind of a way for us to articulate, to communicate to customers, to staff, what we want is positive. We want to build a better society, and actually we want banks like Barclays to be part of it rather than be part of the problem. Another action I want to quickly talk about is one that we did in Manchester. And actually, I think, the really interesting thing about this action in Manchester was that we did it on a Sunday afternoon when the bank was closed, but it was a really busy high street up in Manchester. And so actually the bank being open wasn't a particularly important, part of it. We found we had about 20 or 30 people doing the action, and we built a big cardboard pipeline. This was around the time that Barclays were considering whether to finance a big Canadian pipeline that was actually subsequently been nationalised by Justin Trudeau's government. But yeah, what we did was we used the big pipeline, we held it up, we had banners as a point of attraction for people to come over, to ask us what we were doing, why we were there. And as well as that, we had people walking around with a petition, speaking to members of the public, asking them to sign the petition for Barclays to stop funding fossil fuels. And we also had a kind of cardboard frame, which was really colourful and had our message for Barclays to defund fossil fuels on it. And so we were taking photos of supported members of the public with the frame that we were then able to share on social media. And that was a really good way to kind of share just how much support that we were getting with the public. And, we spoke to lots of Barclays customers who just had no idea about their kind of complicity in the fossil fuel industry and climate change. And so, through those conversations, we helped people reconsider whether they wanted to bank with Barclays, or, if they wanted to stay banking with Barclays. We were talking to people about sending letters and stuff, going to the AGM, asking them to stop. And just the last action I wanted to quickly mention was, another example of how we can be creative with these spaces, these branches. And that was, this was in Oxford again, I think. We built a big fracking rig. We built it out of kind of loads of tubes. And, we had kind of hazard tape around. And, we put this in one of Oxford's busiest shopping streets. Again, this was on a Sunday afternoon, although the branch was open this time. And so, people were still able to go in and out of the branch and use it if they wanted. So it kind of wasn't annoying customers too much. But it was a really big, unmissable thing for the customers and the public who were walking past. And again, that acted as a really great opportunity to bring people in, to have conversations with them. And ultimately, I think that's what these actions are about. It's a really good opportunity to be creative, to have fun with comrades and, get to know people, but also to have important conversations with members of the public. It's a good opportunity to get them to take action. It's also a good opportunity to invite them along to your local Momentum meeting or another campaigning meeting. So yeah, I hope those are interesting ideas and experiences. And I'm really excited looking forward to seeing all the amazing actions everyone's going to plan.
Cool. Thank you so much, Chris. That was really, really helpful. Just to say that we've still got 120 of you on the call, and it's absolutely great that there are so many people here, and we're really, really excited about this. Even more amazing is that we've had 27 people step up already and say that they're going to do an action. So in the office, we're all cheering here, for those of you who can't hear. We've got Chris from Stockport, we've got Artin from London, Sharon from Manchester, David from Swanley, Helen from Reading, Steve from Cologne, Ian from Leeds, Carol from Southampton, Sheila from Redcar, and Emma in Canterbury. This is absolutely incredible. And this is exactly how we stand in solidarity with the climate strikers, by making our campaign against the banks go really, really big. But we want to make this go bigger. So I would like to try and get us to 40 actions by the end of this call, which means that we just need 13 more of you to sign up. Anyone who wants to sign up to run an event, head over to the link that we've posted again in the chat box just now and fill out the form right here while you're on the call. It won't take long at all. That link again is bit.ly, so that's bit.ly/stop-Barclays. But just to say, if you can't organise an action, don't worry about it. You can still help out. These campaigns obviously take a lot of money to run. If you can spare some cash, then please head to the Donate Momentum page, which is bit.ly/donate momentum to make a donation to the campaign. Or you can keep a lookout for an action in your area that you can go along to. And it sounds like there's going to be loads and loads. So we're really, really excited about that. Cool. So just before we wrap up, we're going to hear from Sam, who is a local Momentum organiser in Camden, who is already committed to holding an action on Saturday the 30th. Sam, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go for it.
Great. Listen, the first thing I wanted to say is I'm incredibly impressed looking at the chat box at how much experience there is on this call and how much people have had to say about the work that they've already done and that they plan to do. And I certainly intend to go back after the call and go through that list and see for some really good ideas. I'm really delighted that Momentum is taking this on and following the lead of the climate strikers. I think this is the kind of initiative which makes Momentum the bridge between the Labour Party and the movement that we all join Momentum for it to be. We have passed resolutions in support of the climate strike in both Momentum Camden and in some of the CLPs in Camden. And we're going to hold a meeting on the climate change at our May 13th meeting of Momentum Camden. And this time, although we haven't finalized all our plans yet because it's on such short notice, what has been proposed, at least at this point, is to go after the Barclays Bank in Kentish Town and make that our target. We, of course, have a Momentum banner, and we expect to introduce the banner into the bank and to each of its customers. And we're hoping that Momentum will provide leaflets that we can give them a good education on climate change, apart from the education that we already have. And then on top of that, we're looking to see if we can find somebody who has an account at Barclays that they would like to very publicly close. So we're going to try various things, but I'm certainly going to look back through this list of what people have suggested and bring it to the Camden group and see if there's some other things that we want to do that you all have already done or are suggesting that we do. But again, thank you very much for doing this. This is wonderful. It's wonderful to be on with 120 other people trying to do the same kind of thing.
Thank you so much, Sam. That's absolutely brilliant. Really excited about that event in Camden. I also live in Camden, so I'll definitely come down to that one on Saturday the 30th. So cool. All right, that brings us to the end of Momentum's first ever campaign call. Thank you again so much for joining us. We're all incredibly excited about this. It's going to be great. So this now is your final reminder to go and sign up to run an event at the link we've just posted again in the chat box. That link is bit.ly/stopbarclays. And if you have any questions or about anything that we've talked about, you can always reach us by email. If you want to grab a pen and write this down now, you can reach us at samir.darthi@peoplesmomentum.com. That's samir.darthi@peoplesmomentum.com.
And here's Samir.
Here's Samir, just to remind you of his friendly face. Great. So we want to thank everyone again for being on this call and for being such an integral part of the fight against the fossil fuel industry. We're so excited about this campaign and we're really looking forward to building it with you.
Just to say, we've had just word in from our tech team, we've got 34 sign-ups by the end of this call, which is amazing.
Which is definitely more than we imagined we'd get from one call. So yeah, we're really excited about that. Yes, so wanted to remind you as well that we'll be following up with everyone who's filled in the form tonight. Be on the lookout in your email inbox tonight to make sure that you follow the next steps. Cool, I think that's it, unless I've forgotten anything. Thanks so much for joining and have a really great evening. Bye.
Bye everyone.
Thank you. Cool. How do we end it?